Live.
Good. I'm gonna do it live. I'm doing it live. Hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of MRAdio. Yeah, I had to think about the name of the show. Welcome to MRAdio. We're not drunk yet, but we're working on it. So the quality of the show can only.
Hot, though. It's really hot, and I'm like, I'm drunk when I'm hot. More
even here in Scotland, it's hot. Yeah, even here it's hot. So welcome everybody to MRAdio, the weekly show on men's issues. My name is Philip Tanser, the founder of Gender Parity UK, and I'm, as always, with my wonderful, unique co-host and host, Elizabeth Hobson.
Yes. Hello, and this is Haku. He's going to join in today too. He's got very strong opinions on these issues.
Yeah. Hello. How are you doing? I'm talking to him, not to you.
You know,
and how are you doing?
Like 3 times bigger than he was when I got him. I know because I've been weighing him. I'm going to need a bigger set of scales at some point, though. He's like his legs anyway.
How old is he now?
He maybe 6 months.
Okay. So a bit younger than my daughter.
5 months.
5 months. Okay.
Evening, Stephen.
Oh yeah, I have to open the chat so I can see the comments. Hi, Stephen. Good evening, Stephen. Good to see you. Now, Elizabeth, it was quite an interesting week for men's rights and men's issues, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite pleasant, really, don't you think?
I would call it interesting. Don't know if pleasant, but definitely interesting. So I think we're gonna just dive into our first topic, the one that was pleasant, and that was, let me share. What's happening here? So the BBC did something unusual. They actually invited MP Nick Fletcher on BBC Women's Hour to talk about his campaign for Minister for Men, something that Nick Fletcher has been fighting for quite some time. Nick Fletcher, for those who don't know, is also a member of the APPG, the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Men's Issues, which was founded by Mike Bell. So Nick Fletcher, he also was one of the main organizers and speakers of International Men's Day debate in Parliament. So he's doing the Lord's work. He's doing a lot of really, really good stuff. And 3 days ago, I think Monday or Tuesday, he was on BBC Women's Hour and was interviewed. Did you listen to that, Elizabeth?
I actually haven't managed to listen to that. No, not yet. I know you've sent it to me, for which I'm very grateful for, but I haven't actually listened to it. I've spoken to people about it who thought he did an excellent job at discussing like the range of issues that we need a Minister for Men to have some oversight on.
Yeah, now I listened to it, and I think he did a very, very good job. A lot of people mentioned that the presenter of Women's Hour, that she derailed the conversation sometimes and attacked him and the conversation in certain direction.
That would be consistent with my experience in listening to her present a discussion on the topic yesterday.
Yeah. But I do think that overall, she did let him make his points. She was not as hostile as she could have been, though certain arguments that she brought up to me were quite infuriating. And for example, she did bring up when Nick Fletcher was talking about the high suicide rate and the shorter life expectancy and boys falling behind in education and things like that. When he mentioned all of that as a reason for a minister for men, then she said, "Yeah, but women haven't reached equality yet." And there are very important women's issues like the gender wage gap and that women are underrepresented in top CEOs. These are literally the two things that she mentioned.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense to me, because if there aren't women CEOs, why should we worry about men killing themselves? If
Exactly.
those are, you know, I mean, they're the whole feminist, it's all lies and delusions. Women choose to not be CEOs, and that is a perfectly reasonable decision. Most men don't be CEOs. But regardless of that, if it really was a problem, it wouldn't mean that we shouldn't just ignore men killing themselves, would it now?
Absolutely. If she had brought up that women are predominantly the victims of domestic abuse, I think at least that would have been an argument that you can at least somehow compare with higher suicide rates on the side of men. But comparing suicide rates and lower life expectancy with CEOs and the non-existent gender wage gap, I mean, that was just absolutely ridiculous. And I've noticed that again and again recently.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, women have a minister for women. So,
and a minister for women and equality.
Saying, I think we need to, like, you know, have a minister for men and forget women.
Of course, he made this argument. He said, look, there should be a minister for women. Women's issues are very important. Of course, you have to say that. And he was incredibly gentle. He was very, very good. He did not open up to any attacks while still standing his ground, without coming across condescending. Yeah. So I think he did a really, really, really good job. Now, what do you think about the fact that he was on BBC Woman's Hour in the first place? We haven't talked about that. What are your thoughts on that?
See, that is interesting, really interesting. You know, all of us have had this idea repeatedly, and you know, it has been in the public square repeatedly, the idea of a minister for men, but it's never really taken hold, and all of a sudden people are talking about it, which is really interesting.
A couple of weeks ago, it was also on BBC Woman's Hour, I think. This feminist author. What was her name again?
Caitlin Moran.
Yeah, exactly, moron. And she was advocating for a minister for men as well. So there is a shift, and
that seems to be what made it palatable for the likes of Woman's Hour.
But they didn't have to invite him in. So I think if they had invited him in just to demolish his arguments, I think they would have been more aggressive. They would have made more counterpoints, which I think they didn't do.
That was what I was going to ask you, actually, was, what did it feel like her intention was with the conversation? Was it a good faith conversation, or was it a Cathy Newman embarrassment, ideological possession?
It was definitely not a Cathy Newman situation. It was I don't want to say it was a good faith conversation, but it wasn't a bad faith conversation either. I think she invited him asked questions, expressed her bias, but let him make his point.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
I think is really what you can expect from a feminist outlet
yeah,
inviting a men's rights activist. I thought that was kind of as good as it gets.
yeah, yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah. Now, so that was on, I think, Tuesday. Yes,
Yes,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Then yesterday, on Wednesday, they had a follow-up where people could call in, and many of us informed each other, and it seemed like there was a men's rights activist, but like the jungle drums were
Yeah.
like, go on the BBC, call them now. So I called them, my wife called them, you called them, everybody called them.
Everybody called them. Yeah, yeah. We had some friends on there, didn't we?
Yes. So I knew, I haven't even finished listening to the whole thing, but I recognized 4 people. So there were 4 friends of ours. So there was Belinda Brown.
Yeah, unfortunately cut off. That was very unfortunate. She was the first.
Very unfortunate, but I do not think that it was. I don't think in the conspiracy that she was cut off intentionally, because she didn't say anything controversial, and she was cut off like 30 seconds after she started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she hadn't even got a full point out, so
yeah, and it was not a controversial point.
Very important.
She just mentioned high workplace fatalities.
Oh, was it workplace?
Then Mike Buchanan was on.
Yes. So yeah, are we gonna do a one list, or do we want to talk about what Mike's sort of segment was like now?
We can. I'm just gonna say the 4 people that I knew, and then we can go into the show. Then there was a John. And I'm pretty sure I know him from Gender Parity UK, but I don't want to say his name because he's quite private. So I think that was him.
Oh, pardon? I said John Doe.
Yeah, John Doe, exactly. Yeah. And then number 4 that I recognized was Andy Butterley, who is a good friend of Swain O'Pie.
Yeah, he's a fellow trustee with me at the charity Parity, and we were all listening and on WhatsApp sharing mostly pain over what we were hearing, because it was mostly pain that hour. But then I heard someone introduced us Andy from where Andy lives, and then I heard his voice and I just caps locked Butterly with a big happy emoji, and it was all very exciting. I thought he did very well.
Oh, brilliant! So say a little bit about what did you think about the call in. Let's start with your overall view. Do you think that most voices were in favor, were against? Were there a lot of radical feminists? What did you think?
I certainly think that most of the time was monopolized by the radical feminist misandric kind of attitude. They had a guy in the studio who was profoundly misandric, and he actually goes into schools and talks to boys and lies to boys and girls, I'm sure. And so he really gave me the hump. I did tweet Woman's Hour asking who is that lying man. And I actually, just before we came on, I was scrolling through their Twitter and I found him and I followed him, and I'm going to talk to him until he blocks me.
Can you say what's his name?
He's the Men at Work founder, Michael Conroy.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was given just loads of time, and he was saying things like young boys resonate with Andrew Tate's message because Andrew Tate tells them that they are entitled to everything now without putting any effort in. And it's like, I mean, I tweeted Women's Hour, I was like, that is a lie. Like, you know, whatever you can say about Andrew Tate, he does not give that message. He says they need to work if they want to be successful. And if you're going to go in and lie to boys' faces and they know that you're lying, then you are going to give them the impression that there's some kind of conspiracy to mislead them, which is true. And, you know, they're going to feel righteous anger at that. And sometimes, you know, in a minority of cases, righteous anger comes out messily. So, you know, it's not Andrew Tate that's radicalizing boys, it's men like this going into schools trying to be the white knight. Yes, he is at men@work_MC, by the way, for anyone who is...
let me follow him as well.
And you know what else he agreed with? So someone, I can't remember if they called in or they like messaged in, but they basically said that men are predominantly the victims of violent crime, and it's perpetrated by men. So maybe what we need is a minister for male violence. And this guy, he was opposed to the Minister for Men, by the way. And also he criticised the APPG. And then he said, yeah, a minister for male violence would be really useful.
Okay, so your overall impression that it was massively dominated by misandry and an anti-Minister for Men bias. I actually thought the opposite. I thought that while the guest very clearly, this male feminist, very clearly was there to argue against the Minister for Men, and he was there to highlight how evil we men are. I think most of the people that actually called in were very much in favor of a Minister for Men. I think they made very, very good points, while the few people that called in that were really against the Minister for Men often came across as lacking compassion and being heartless. So I think even...
Yeah, but I think we're using different metrics, because I did say that I feel like most of the time was spent on anti-Minister for Men arguments. I possibly kind of equal-ish maybe in terms of where the participants altogether fell on the issue, like if you work it out that way. And yeah, I mean, there were some excellent points made, and I was actually, regarding Mike, I thought Mike did so well, and it was really nice to hear him open. I think I do feel like half an hour. So there was Belinda's call that got cut off, and then Mike for maybe 5 minutes. And then I feel like it was like a solid half hour of just misandry, which made me fear that he was literally the one token advocate. But then there were a few more that crept in from callers. But what really annoyed me, I thought he did so well. And then at the end, he was making a point about teacher bias in favor of girls, and how when teachers mark assessments, they mark their girls up because they really like them. And, you know, if they're examined independently of people that don't know them, then the results, you know, boys and girls do much more similarly than they do when the teachers mark them. And Nuala, or whatever her name is, was like, yeah, but that's just your hypothesis, and then cut him off. And I was so annoyed, because it's not just a hypothesis. There's copious amounts of evidence for that.
But I think Mike Buchanan did very, very well. The only thing, and that's not a criticism against Mike at all, but against us in some ways, is sometimes we rely too much on data, and I think to some extent the data is important, but what women or the feminist side do very well is manipulating emotions. So I think where we have to get better is highlighting the people that we know that committed suicide, our sons, our fathers, like, and actually making people feel sorry about men, because I said the feminist side already came across as lacking compassion and being vindictive.
Terribly, yeah.
And being vindictive. And if we actually highlight the real life consequences of the misandry that they espouse, and then they double down, I think it becomes harder and harder for them to show that they're the good guys, because they are already not coming across as the good guys.
You know, my last ICMI speech, which was for the virtual conference in 2020, was called The Power of Stories, and it was all about that. Like, I mean, I am eternally grateful for the discipline that being part of this movement has given me in terms of evidencing what I'm saying. You know, and the actual facts and the actual data are utterly vital, and we should absolutely prioritize being correct. But numbers don't move people, they don't change hearts and minds. So yeah, I agree with you, but on the other hand, we all have different, you know, personalities and ways of expressing ourselves. And like, for example, I absolutely love and really resonate with Paul Elam's style of delivery. You know, his like harsh but fair, like sort yourself out kind of personal responsibility, or I'll call you something mean, you know, no victims, only volunteers kind of thing. But I couldn't.
I never heard that phrase. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I really resonate with it. Like, and I really totally get it. And he's been really useful for me personally. And I think he's a really valuable voice. But I couldn't deliver a message like Paul Elam does. And like Mike is like very professional, and he's very, you know, these are the facts. Look at the facts. And so, you know, I don't know to what degree Mike would be able to sell a, like, you know, bleeding heart, think about the men's kind of presentation. And to be honest, I think that men generally are going to struggle to do that, because society, like, people don't respond to male tears in the same way they respond to female tears. I think that
I don't want Mike to change his approach, not at all. I think
I agree it's a very important part, but I think that it is kind of the responsibility of women in particular. Or, you know, I mean, some men do it, like Warren Farrell can do it. He does it very well. And also, you know, men who've been victimized, when they can tell the facts of what happened to them, and it's moving. And Philip's disappeared, but I believe I'm still alive, so I'll just continue. Yeah, so, you know, men talking very clearly about experiences that just are harrowing is moving, especially when there's kids involved. But largely, I think it's going to fall down to women within the men's human rights movement to sell that angle. And half the time, you know, it is going to involve reminding people about the mothers and daughters and sisters and lovers and wives who are, you know, deeply affected because you can't poison half a well.
Yeah, and obviously Nick Fletcher actually used that line of attack. He said,
Mhm.
if men are doing better, it will be better for women as well.
Yeah. And I mean, like feminists will even say that it's the whole women hold up half the sky thing, like it's true. It's very much true, but like,
Yeah. Now so your overall, like about the call-in yesterday,
yeah.
what's your overall judgment? What do you think? What did people take out? Did you followed the comments a little bit? What were the comments like? Yeah, if you were not part of the men's rights movement, you are just a person who watched it. What did you take out of it?
So yeah, I've just dipped into what's going on their Twitter account, and I mean they've been putting out tweets that have like speech bubbles, like they've made memes of things that people have said, and I feel like they are not trying to present the strongest case for a minister for men within that. I've also then started, but only just started, to go through the tweets. And I mean, I don't know, is there like an algorithm thing where they're going to show me the people I know first? Or are they the
I
top
doubt it.
that are right underneath, or what? I mean, we've got Brian Blindspot here, Phil Mitchell, and then honestly, I mean, I do have faith in people. As far as I've got, like, yeah, there are some just like ridiculous radical feminists. Then there appears to be some people who maybe haven't thought about this before, but actually on reflection, there should at least be something done. Like they are starting to think,
I saw that.
actually some of these issues are important. And I mean, I do feel like it's a matter of time until we have a minister for men now, like, and not very much time, actually.
Yeah. I think overall it was definitely a positive. I think it was great. It kept the conversation going, and I think that the arguments from the men's rights perspective were very strong. The arguments from the women's perspective, I don't think were there. I think there was not a single argument.
Bro, that was a gross generalization. From the women's perspective, from the women's movement perspective, you mean?
Sorry, from the feminist perspective. Yeah, sorry about that. When I said women, I didn't mean females. I meant women as in everybody who acts like a bitch.
Listen to this, man. Listen to this. My friend, like, told me the best thing. He was at work and someone else there had a headache, and someone said, "Hey, do you want a paracetamol?" And this guy turned around and said, "No, I don't take bitch mints." So using it. Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah. I like it. So yeah, I think overall it was very good. But now, do you want to hear something really shockingly, terrifyingly awful?
Always.
Okay, so yesterday between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning, my wife and I, we were waiting at the telephone, just like you, waiting for the BBC to call us back so we might be able to express our views on BBC Women's Hour. And I, we had to go to work, like cleaning our holiday places. And yesterday was the first day where the sun was shining. Now you're wondering, where is this leading to?
Yeah, it all sounds all so far.
Yeah, so because the sun was shining, I could actually work in the garden. So the whole day I was busy mowing the grass, mowing the lawn, and then I went back in, looked after my daughter, did this and this, and then at 10 o'clock in the evening, I opened my email account, my gender parity email account, and my email account for a campaign for a minister for men. And there was an email. I clicked on it, and it said, "Hi, I'm so and so from Sky News. Would you be able to come? Would you be able to come on our show today at 4 o'clock? Please call us." And I was like, no. Oh my God. So I wrote back, hi there. I'm so sorry that I couldn't respond in time. We are always open to come on the show, be it for Minister for Men or any man-related issues. When you contact us, please also call me on the landline. Send that email out. Open the next email. Hi, my name is so-and-so. We would like you to come on to GB News to talk to Nigel Farage tonight. Open the next email. Hi, we are from, is it LTD?
LBC.
LGBT.
No, it's nothing like LGBT. Nothing like that.
Yeah, we're from LBC. We would like you to come to our show tonight. And then there was a fourth one, from the BBC. We would like you to come on to our BBC Essex.
Do you not have these all going to your phone?
No. And to be honest, when I'm mowing grass, like
my phone, I have no notifications. But when I want to know if I've got an email to any of many email addresses, they're on there, so I can look. So
the thing is, honestly, I exclusively, because I work a lot and I work quite a lot during the day, I exclusively check my emails in the morning, in the evening. During the day, I do other stuff. So
mind you, to be fair, like, you've given them all your phone number. I do think this is going to be cropping up again.
Hopefully, but the thing is, my plan is actually now, and I talked about that with my guys from Gender Parity UK. I said, what we should do is actually create a list of experts from our side in different areas, like domestic abuse, Deborah Powney, Mark Brooks, and so on. Send it over to these people and say, look, these are the people to contact about these topics. Please make sure to contact them, and they also
excellent idea. That is an excellent idea. Yeah.
So that was our first topic for tonight. It seems like we only have Stephen Hatterley with us tonight. Where's Vernon? Where are the other guys tonight? If there's anybody else watching us, please leave a message in the comment section, because it seems like we only have Stephen with us, which obviously is more than enough. Not more than enough, it's just enough. The perfect amount of enough. So the second story for tonight, we stay with the BBC, and while the first story overall, I would say, was more positive than negative, the second story is definitely more negative than it is positive. Share screen. Stephen, stop calling me a creep. Hey, shall I leave you guys alone? You and Stephen. Seems like you guys have a good thing going on here. So, the BBC in the last couple of days released a video on BBC iPlayer, and they released this article. The headline of the article reads, "Family courts, children forced into contact with fathers accused of abuse." Dum, dum, dum. And it was written by a guy called Ed Thomas. And because of this Ed Thomas guy and the response from some men's rights activists, Vernon. Hey, Vernon. Good to see you. Oh, that's okay. I hope it's pleasant work that you're busy with, Vernon. So yeah, I saw comments by this guy, Ed Thomas. I saw it because some of our men's rights activist colleagues were responding to him. And this article by the BBC was initiated very clearly because there's clearly a conspiracy going on. The government is working towards a family court reform, and we talked about that before. And everybody knows there is need for a family court reform. So organizations like ours, like Gender Parity UK. Pardon?
I disagree. I don't think we need reform.
Oh, get rid of it.
Abolition. It's not.
Abolition.
It's not. They're not appropriate. Like.
Well, we can go into that in a moment.
We need mental health experts going in there. We don't need to put parents who are struggling to co-parent amicably. We don't need to put them into these situations where, you know, it's like a adversarial court settings. It's crazy. And then we're thinking about abuse. Like, that doesn't matter. It's not
the problem if you put in mental health experts, you know who these mental health experts are going to be trained by, and the soft science are demonstrably dominated by feminist ideology. So it's quite possible that these mental health experts would create something just as bad as we are dealing with at the moment.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that idea was put into my head in a conversation with Graham Huntry, who said that in Israel they treat children being separated from parents and grandparents as a health issue, and they try to rectify it. So that would be where I would like to see us, you know, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, please bring that up later on when we wrap up the story, because I'd be interested in that. So what's currently happening? The government wants to reform the family court, and under Dominic Raab, he was actually pushing for a really good family court reform, I would say. And Dominic Raab is now out. And even when Dominic Raab was still there was already a strong push from the feminist lobbies, including an organization called Shira. You can follow them on X. And this organization was founded specifically demonize fathers and fight against the recognition of parental alienation. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's all connected to, for example, the so-called Harms Report, which was co-authored by Adrienne Barnett, blah, 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 radical feminists that all push a completely biased and false narrative that fathers are the abusers, women are the victims, and if we want to protect children, we have to make sure that the children stay with the mothers. So this organization, Shira, they...
No, but can I just jump in and complain?
Sure.
Like, that is not even what they mean, though. It's not about, like, children staying with their mothers as an exclusive rule, because a minority of mothers or a minority of parents who are alienated from their children, a minority of them are women. And organizations like this, these feminists who are campaigning against the recognition of parental alienation as abuse, they don't give a shit about those women, that minority of women or their children. It's like they want to liberate feminine aggression, which is largely perpetrated by women, but not entirely. And to be honest, like, I mean...
What do you mean by feminine aggression?
Relational aggression and reputation sabotage and manipulation and control, not through like physical dominance, but through appealing to authority, through
that would also include, I assume, using the system
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to be honest, like at this point, I do feel like they don't know what demons are driving them. I think maybe they think that they are trying to protect women, but they're not. If they were trying to protect women, I wouldn't mind, man. Like, if they were trying to protect women, they'd be trying to protect daughters, they'd be trying to protect all mothers, they'd be trying to protect grandparents, they would be trying to encourage women to be good, decent, moral agents. Like, it's not that.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think the argument that they mean well and that they actually want to protect female victims, I think I cannot believe that anymore under any circumstances.
I mean, maybe consciously, but like there is a lot under consciousness, you know what I mean?
I think it's exclusively about power. It's exclusively about power.
To be honest, I think it may be power, but also, you know, if my belief in demonic forces is correct, also just chaos and misery. I think maybe there are demons inside them that want to spread chaos and misery.
Yeah.
And they're doing a great
job. I think if you
what they want to do, they're achieving it.
Pardon, say again?
I said if that is what they want to do, spread misery and chaos, then they are achieving it.
I think when you look at people, there are usually 3 levels like of consciousness. I think there is the what you prepare, what you present to the outside, which is the compassion, or we care about female victims, and a part of you might even believe in that a little bit. I think the second part is what this is really about is power and control. And I think, let's say, if there's a demonic force, I don't think that most people are aware of it. I think the
and I mean,
minority.
You don't have to like get into theology with it. It could just be, you know, subconscious motivations that are within you that you repress because you feel like they are unacceptable, and so they come out in twisted ways.
Yeah. So, going back to the article, as I said, this organization Shira, they are pushing.
How do you spell that? I did look them up. Sorry.
Yeah, this organization, they are pushing for the demonization of fathers, and they want to establish. They want to get rid of the presumption of contact with both parents in parental disputes, so to speak. And one way to manipulate manipulate the outcome of this family court reform is obviously using the BBC and media outlets to promote the view that fathers are dangerous and abusive. And this article is one of these examples, and I'm going to read just a little bit from it. So it's by Ed Thomas, special correspondent. Dozens of children have been forced into contact with fathers accused of abuse, a study has found. In some cases in the research revealed for the first time by the BBC, the fathers were convicted pedophiles. In all cases, fathers had used a disputed concept in court known as parental alienation. Separately, the same concept has been cited in the deaths of women after family courts allowed fathers accused of abuse to apply for contact. The BBC investigation found 5 mothers died, some taking their own lives and one having a heart attack. All the fathers in the England-wide study carried out by the University of Manchester and reported by the BBC had responded in court to abuse allegations with the parental alienation concept, in which they claimed the mothers had turned the child against them without good reason. Dr. Elizabeth Daljarno, who led the research, says the concept is a handy tool for abusers, and its acceptance by courts is a national scandal. Family law barrister Lucy Reed, KC, says the term is deployed increasingly frequently but doesn't always mean the same thing. It's quite often used by fathers to mean pretty much anything that is in opposition to their demand for a certain amount of contact. The 45 mothers of the children in the University of Manchester study all reported serious health problems which they believed were linked to the stress of family court proceedings, including miscarriages, heart attacks, and suicidal thoughts. For months, the BBC has also been examining stories of traumatized women as part of a wider investigation into the way that family courts handle domestic violence claims in disputes between parents. Because of the law surrounding reporting of the court proceedings intended to protect children, the women's names and some identifying details have been changed. Domestic Abuse Commissioner Nicole Jacobs says the Herring cases uncovered by the BBC show there is a need for urgent and wide-reaching reform of family courts. Abusers aided by unregulated experts were using so-called parental alienation to deflect from their own abusive behavior, she says. Since we made the Ministry of Justice aware of our investigation, the BBC has learned the government is investigating whether further action is needed on alienation. The judiciary has also issued new draft guidelines for consultation on handling parental alienation claims in domestic abuse cases, although some experts say they don't go far enough. So that's just the beginning, but I'm going to stop here. Yes, everything that you read here in this article is actually kind of pre-written by Shira. All the points that they are making, you find on the website from Shira, and that the Domestic Abuse Commissioner is towing the exact same line. And the Domestic Abuse Commissioner has, beginning of this year, has had a consultation on family court reform that almost exclusively invited female organizations, and it was obviously from the get-go incredibly leading. It's a conspiracy, unfortunately, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not debatable. If the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, the Victims Commissioner, organizations like Shira, if they all work into the same direction, to me, that's a conspiracy.
Yeah, and it's not like, I mean, the fact that they are looking into the issue. Sorry, I've got an echo. I hate that because my voice is so awful. The fact that they are looking into the issue, they have the library at the House of Commons, they have all these researchers. Why are they making these bold claims but not asking their researchers to look into the veracity of what they are being told? Like, they have a responsibility to not lie. You know, when sometimes, I'm not, sometimes you take in information and you don't look at it critically, but it's like, if you are going to focus on one issue as a politician, as the Victims Commissioner, it's a big job. You need to look into the research and be sure about what you're saying. There is absolutely on the harms that parental alienation causes to children. Forget fathers, forget the minority of mothers. Children suffer. Yeah. The outcomes are really, really harsh and lifelong.
Now and this is where I bring up the conspiracy. By the way, in that case, it was the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, not the Victims Commissioner. But the Domestic Abuse Commissioner creates a panel discussion on family court reform and invites the same people like Shira to create the wanted outcome of this panel discussion. So she creates a paper that supports what the feminists want to say. Then the study that is mentioned in the BBC article with the 45 women, obviously it didn't look at fathers at all. It's a It's a feminist study with no peer review, and that is presented by the BBC, who are supposed to be partial, as
Impartial. They're supposed to be impartial, Philip.
Oh, sorry. That was a Freudian slip, I think. So yeah, the BBC takes the statements of the mothers as truth, even though they have not been cross-checked.
Oh yeah, but when you started reading that bit, I wondered whether they were going to bring up like the 19 child homicides thing. You know,
mothers.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, 19 child, was it 19 anyway? I think it was 19. 19 child homicides was a report written by Women's Aid, which spoke about 19 occasions over the decade previous in which fathers who had gotten access to their children through the courts, but they'd been accused of being abusive, had gone on to murder their children. So CAFCAS, who are the child and adolescent support service, who are supposed to represent children in courts, initially were I think they might have funded that report and they had their name on it, but they came out and disavowed it afterwards when people looked into the actual data and found that a greater number of women who had alleged that their partner was abusive in court and then got the father cut out of the children's lives had actually gone on to kill their children. And moreover, that allegations of abuse within family courts more often indicate they cover up an abuser. The allegations are more often made by people who are abusive themselves than they are true. So CAFCAS disowned that. So I thought you were going to talk about that report, which would be ridiculous, but you didn't. But actually the report that they cited, it's like they're like, oh, these men are abusive, the women are killing themselves and having heart attacks and miscarriages. And it's like, maybe that's to do with abuse, it could be, but it's not exactly a smoking gun, is it? It's like,
and obviously nobody mentions all the men that commit suicide because they lose their children in the family court.
That's only thrown many CEOs.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
I said that we don't need to worry about men committing suicide because they're only 3 out of 4 of suicides, and also there aren't many women CEOs.
Nice.
Clear that issue up.
Yeah, that was a nice one. That was good. So by the way, there was a follow-up report by the BBC by the same guy, which focused on mothers that took their children to Malta.
Kidnappers.
They kidnapped them. And I think there were 9 cases of mothers kidnapping their children, alleging that if they had stayed in the UK, the fathers would have killed the children. And so these are criminals because they were not allowed to leave the country with the child. They officially kidnapped their children, and the BBC failed to talk to the fathers or present a different viewpoint. So they portrayed it as if these women all told the truth and escaped with their children to protect them instead of
and let me guess, the Hague Convention needs to be abolished because it assumes that children have a right to see their fathers.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
No, it doesn't need to be abolished. It just needs to be ignored. It's a woman who kidnaps children. Yeah.
Oh, it needs to be gendered. It needs to be gendered. If man abuse. So for those who don't know, the Hague, what's it called? Hague convention, it's pretty much that you cannot kidnap a child into another country. When the child is being taken to another country, then the country has to make sure that the child is being brought back to the parent. And that was created by feminists because originally because they wanted to stop fathers from taking the children to other countries. Maybe, do you know the whole thing with Sally Field, the Sally Field movie where the father abducted the children to Iran, and then it was a big movie in the 90s with Sally Field, and it was like an Iranian British mixed couple, and then they went to Iran and the father didn't allow them to leave, and the mother took the child and fled with the child back to the UK. And so because of cases like that, they created the Hague Convention, and unfortunately it's predominantly mothers that kidnap children, not fathers.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good sort of international apparatus that like all countries are.
But it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work because I was a couple of months ago, I think around 3 months ago, there was actually like an online meeting of the Hague mothers, and me and
I've still got notes from it. I meant to type them up. I even took screenshots.
Exactly, and so that's why I say there is a conspiracy, because it's not just one punch, it's not a double punch, it's a quadruple, and it's like punch after punch after punch.
Remember what they were saying? They were really upset because states are acting on it, because it is like, it's an emergency when this happens, because if they let these abducting parents go before they've like had their day in court, feminists on that conversation were upset about the fact it works.
Well, but I don't know if you remember that, but I think, and I don't want to misquote them, but they said in most cases the children were actually not sent back to their fathers. They remained with the mother, but it inconvenienced the mothers because they had to go to court. But the children remained with the mother. So the system actually doesn't work. It just inconveniences.
No, but they make the mothers return to the country where the child was born.
I don't think that was the case, but maybe I misunderstood that. I think that I'm pretty sure that they said in most cases the child and the mother could stay in the country where they were. I'm pretty sure that was the case, and so it's not even working. And it's you know it yourself. As soon as a child is alienated, it's almost impossible to bring that child back to the other parent, because the child will view that as abusive behavior because they have already been brainwashed. So we have to act much faster. These parents should not be allowed to leave the country with the child without the permission of the other parent, really.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, that's kind of difficult. Like, what are you going to do? Stop every one parent with one child who's trying to get on a plane?
Well, actually, why not? Why not having? Oh, yeah, but that could be abused as well. That could be massively be abused.
Agree. Like, parents have the right to take their children on their own to see family or go somewhere. Like, they have that right. They don't want to stay. Yes,
it's disturbing and sickening that they try to normalize abducting children against court orders. Absolutely. But I think there are so many sickening things recently, that they normalize child murder, that they normalize late-term abortion, they normalize abduction, they normalize murder in regards to domestic abuse, because they say every time a woman kills a man, it's out of self-defense, no matter the circumstances. So it's in any case, it's absolutely awful. There's very clearly a push towards normalizing sickening female behavior while criminalizing normal and even loving male behavior. And
I
I
think I
don't
would
think,
I would rephrase that like feminine and masculine, to be honest,
mm,
because they can
I,
be inhibited, you know.
no,
By
I would say male and female. I would say male and female, but as soon as you are a female who doesn't fit into the feminist narrative, then you're obviously excluded from the protection.
Well,
So
yeah,
that,
but not only that, but the fact is that our legislation and our systems, they are gender neutral, they are sex neutral, you know, they are in the letter applied to men and women equally, you know. So when men use feminine aggression, they are significantly more likely to get away with that than they are using masculine aggression. And, you know,
okay,
women
yeah, I hear you.
refuse to engage in feminine aggression and choose to use virtues which may in fact be more masculine are disadvantaged. Just
So
like
okay, so to, if I understood that right, if, for example, a man in a separation, if a man would just make false allegations first and let's say bitch about it and stuff like that, and then he would be actually in the same privileged position as a woman that makes a false allegation.
yeah, I've seen that. A friend of mine who is particularly well versed in data regarding family courts said to me that the system is constituted so as to be biased in favor of the most unscrupulous parent.
Yeah.
So what the
I think
statistics regarding
that's
what
perfect.
happens in those, like in the outcomes, says about men and women, you know, is
That's perfect. That's perfect.
yeah.
So it's 10 o'clock. We have to wrap it up. I would like to do a shameless self plug real quick for our website and something that we're doing from Gender Parity UK. I just want to share that real quick. So in 2 days, on the 9th of September, it's International Falsely Accused Day, which ties in nicely with the false allegations of domestic abuse in the family court, but obviously it also covers false allegations of sexual misconduct, rape, and so on. So on our website, which is Gender Parity UK, what's our website? genderparity.uk/falsely-accused/. When you go to our website, you find a document called Legal Protection for the Accused and Falsely Accused. It's a document where we make certain suggestions how the law should be changed to protect those who are accused, maybe rightly accused, but also those who are falsely accused. So in regards to people that are accused, potentially rightly or wrongly accused, they still deserve certain protections, right? Because everybody deserves a fair trial. So we highlight certain things that up to the point where they have been convicted, they have to be referred to as the accused, not the perpetrator. And currently, before the evidence has been found, they already call the accuser the victim and the accused the perpetrator, which means they already don't get a fair trial. In regards to those who have been falsely accused, there are some grave injustices. For example, when somebody has been investigated or put in prison due to a false allegation, the police and the state are actually viewed as the victim because you wasted police time. So if there is any accusation against the false accuser, it's from the police. and the one who's been falsely accused, whose life has been destroyed, is not even seen as a victim. These and we propose certain changes. Let me go in. So down here there are our proposed changes. I'm just going to read out 2 or 3 of them. So the accused should have automatic right to pre-trial anonymity unless a public interest determination is made. Or here, allegations proven to be false should be recorded as false allegations, which is currently not the case. Data on unproved and false allegations should be listed in official police statistics. So these are all the suggestions that we make, and I would ask everybody who watches this show to use this letter from Gender Parity UK, from our website, and maybe send this to their MPs. You can send it to the Ministry of Justice. I think that would be great as well. You can send it to local news outlets. You can also send it to GB News or the BBC. The more people sending it to outlets like the BBC, the more likely it is that it will be picked up at one point. So that was a shameless self-plug. Again, that is on our website, genderparity.uk. So, and now to end the show, because we have to end it now, I have to go back to my wife. When you talked about the family court, it made me think about something that I read 2 days ago in the Bible. Every morning, my wife and I, we're flipping through the Bible. I'm flipping through the Bible, and my wife says, stop. And then we have to stop wherever I stop. And it was in, I think, 2 Kings. And it was the story of King David and the 2 prostitutes who were fighting about whose child it was. So the story goes as follows. 2 prostitutes that were living together both gave birth to children just a few days apart from each other. And the child of the one prostitute died one night. And when she noticed that her child had died, she got up and placed her dead child on the breast of the sleeping other woman and took her baby over to her bed. And these women went to King David for his decision whose child it is. And they both met their case, and they said, this child is mine. And the other one said, this child is mine. And then King David said, bring me a sword. And he ordered the child to be cut in half so that each woman would get half a child. And then the one woman said, no, please don't cut this child in half. Let this woman have the child. Don't cause any harm to the child. And the other woman said, if I can't have the child, then nobody should have the child alive. And then King David knew who the mother was and gave the child to the mother who cared for the child. And I think that is a wise decision. This is how you can tell who actually cares about the welfare of a child. The one who gives up the child to not harm it further is probably the better parent. I just want to read out a few comments before we get offline. So Justin Short wrote, it's disturbing and sickening that they try to normalize abducting children against court orders. And then he wrote, Philip, I would like to share my story and discuss plans to fight this injustice. How am I able to get in touch with you? Please send me an email to Philip, that's spelled PHILIPP, at genderparity.uk. Send me your story, and if you want to, I'd be happy to have you on the show if that's okay for you, Elizabeth. And you can share your story with us. Thank you so much for watching and for reaching out. Then Sam Adam wrote, "Our voices are not heard. Who can help?" That's a good question. I think, as depressing as it is, keep posting under articles. The culture is slowly shifting, but we have to keep nagging. We have to keep speaking up. Write to your MP. When you write to your MP with a personal story and issues that you face, you also have to call them. So in the past, I sent letters to MPs and didn't receive a response. But as soon as I called the office, usually the secretaries working for them are really nice people. And as soon as you talk to them, you're much more likely to be heard and to get a response from the MP. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, but also I would suggest being open with random people you meet, like people that you start chatting with at the library or the bus stop or in church. I think, you know, I have been surprised how reasonable and open most people are. There are very few people who have not seen malicious, scorned ex-wives use their children as weapons and also collateral damage in their vendettas against their ex-husbands or, you know, partners if they weren't married. So, and you know, that actually connecting with someone eye to eye, like being honest and real, that changes hearts on an individual level. And you know, if we change everyone's heart, then maybe we'll get somewhere.
But I completely agree with you, but I would make a little suggestion. So I used to be in same-sex relationships. So I used to be gay, and quite often when I talk about discrimination against men and boys, what I say is, I used to be gay, so I'm aware of how discrimination feels like. And then I listen to my male friends and their stories, and I'm like, oh my God, they're facing discrimination. Most people are not aware that men can experience certain things. So when you start talking about discrimination that you experience, often it helps to say, I wasn't aware what was happening to me, or I thought stuff like that couldn't happen, but it happened to me. Because most people are still quite closed in regards to the suffering of man. And if you tell them that before it happened to you, you weren't aware of it, that actually helps you to connect to people. If this is if you want to show them that it's a larger problem. If you just want to talk about your own experience, then you don't have to do that, I think.
Yeah, I found when I'm trying to start conversations like that, I open with, what do you think about the Me Too movement? What do you think about, you know, children's access to their parents post-separation? And I let them tell me what they think and then start nibbling at the edges.
Okay. Thank you. So
sometimes I've been surprised that they come straight in with a like, yeah, that's a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think the majority of people are not that brainwashed. So if you once you connect with people, they're usually they have pretty normal opinions. Last two comments again from from SA. it's shocking to see the BBC and Women's Aid facilitating for the moms to break the law by taking their children outside of the UK. Now, the BBC didn't facilitate it. The BBC interviewed them unquestioning, so they didn't facilitate it. And I have no proof or nothing that tells me that Women's Aid helped them or facilitated it. But it's a very good point, because in our tonight
they condoned it, didn't they?
Tonight in our Gender Parity UK meeting, I talked to Terry White and I asked him exactly that question. I said, Terry, how did the BBC or Shira, how did they find these mothers that abducted their children? Is it possible that the organization, not the BBC, that the organization Shira actually facilitated women or organizations like Women's Aid facilitated for women to break the law? And that would be a very interesting case to make. So our friend Terry White's going to look into that. And then Justin Short wrote, in regards to the woman Elizabeth Daljarno, which is the so-called domestic violence expert from the article that we talked about earlier, I can't find any of her degrees, education, or qualifications anywhere, or any job role before 2018. This is very bizarre for a university academic. Does anyone know this information? Justin, that would be very interesting to know. Could you again contact me if you find out a little bit more, or even if you don't find anything, please contact me on philip@genderparity.uk. And now we really have to wrap it up. We always end the show with a little prayer, so I'm going to say a little prayer for everybody. Those who are atheists, you don't have to participate, but you don't have to leave us either. And please share, like, and subscribe to the channel. Share the videos so that it reaches more people. We had quite a few people in the end of the show, so I hope they watch the full episode and then end up sharing it. Oh, Sam,
Yeah.
Adam, thank you, Philip. This is very good advice. Thank you, anti-fembot, Elizabeth. I will talk to people more. I will email my MP and follow up by calls. Yeah, Sam, and feel free to contact me as well on the email address that I gave out twice tonight if there's anything that I can help you with. Okay? So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we are able to help people and that we are able to fight for a better society. But in the end, these are all just earthly laws and earthly changes. But overall, we need a real change in society. We need men and women to look at each other again with respect and with love and with deep understanding for each other. What we are working on is really just putting a plaster, how do you call them? Do you call them plasters? Band-aids. Putting band-aids on amputations. What we really need are changes in our hearts, and we trust you that you help people to change their hearts. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So thank you very much. That was a great episode again. And spoiler alert, you know where I'm going tomorrow morning? No, you can't know. You can't know. It's called Caveman. So you know that I sometimes go into the forest with my wild man group.
Yeah.
We're not going into the forest this time. We're going to spend time in a cave on a Scottish island. And the fun thing is I have no idea what's going to happen. We don't even know what we're supposed to bring. We're like, no, that's all on you. You bring what you feel is appropriate. I have no idea. So Yeah.
Cool.
If I'm not here next Thursday, then I didn't make it.
That is a proper like rite of initiation, old school, like like ancestor tripping out kind of shamanic vibe. I like
That's
it.
very much what it is. So it's very much about initiations, going to the edge and seeing like experiencing the man beyond what you've experienced so far. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'll tell you. I can't tell you much because it's very much like we're not allowed to talk about our experiences. No. But I will know what I'm allowed to talk about. I can't go into details, but I can say how it felt or how I feel.
Yeah.
So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Plasters is right, Philip. Okay. I think Band-Aid is funnier. Okay, good night.